A law student stopped responding to her loved ones, and soon they raised the alarm. Once the police got involved, the case began to unfold with twists and turns you wouldn't find even in a crime thriller. And when detectives finally uncovered the truth, the story turned into one of the most sinister and chilling cases in the country's history. Lauren Giddings was born on April 18, 1984, in Tacoma Park, Maryland. She grew up in a loving family, with caring parents and two younger sisters she was especially close to. From a young age, Lauren had a deep faith and a strong desire to help others. That's why she chose to become a public defender, someone who stands up for people who can't afford a lawyer. To make that dream a reality, she enrolled at Mercer University and moved to Macon, Georgia. Lauren excelled in her studies and even became president of Mercer's chapter of the Federalist Society. She later landed an internship at a law firm in Atlanta, where she met a man named David, and the two soon started dating. After she returned to Macon, they kept their relationship going long distance and planned to get married once Lauren finished law school. In the summer of 2011, when Lauren was 27, she finally graduated, but there was still one big milestone ahead: the bar exam. She spent weeks preparing for it, taking a short break only to attend her younger sister's wedding back home in Maryland. After the celebration, she returned to Georgia and joined her classmates for a small end-of-year party. Not long after that, she told her friends and family she was going to spend the next few days completely focused on studying and asked them not to disturb her. From that moment on, no one heard from Lauren. At first, her friends and family assumed she was just busy preparing for the exam. But a few days later, on June 29th, her sister started to worry. She was on her honeymoon at the time and had been sending her photos from the trip, but Lauren hadn't opened a single message. Her sister knew Lauren was focused on studying, but the fact that she hadn't even read the messages for days felt unsettling. Worried, she reached out to one of Lauren's friends and asked her to check if everything was okay. The friend tried calling first, but the calls went straight to voicemail. So, she and her boyfriend decided to drive over to Lauren's apartment, a small student housing complex right across from the university. The first thing they noticed was that Lauren's car was still parked outside, but when they knocked, no one answered. Her friend had a spare key, so after a moment's hesitation, she decided to let herself in. Inside, the place was a mess, but that wasn't necessarily alarming. Lauren was supposed to move in with her boyfriend David the very next day, so there were bags and suitcases scattered everywhere. But Lauren herself was nowhere to be found. On the other hand, her purse, phone, even laptop were still there. None of it made any sense. Where could she have gone, leaving behind all of her things, and even her car? The friends started calling around, reaching out to people who knew Lauren, and soon, several of them joined the search. They combed the university grounds and nearby streets, but there was no sign of her. They also learned that no one had seen or spoken to Lauren for days. When her family found out what was happening, they drove from Maryland to Georgia to help. Meanwhile, her friends kept searching through the night, but when morning came and there was still no trace of her, they finally decided to call the police. Officers arrived at the apartment complex and searched Lauren's unit, but they didn't find any signs of forced entry or a struggle. Still, her sudden disappearance seemed deeply suspicious, so they called in forensic specialists to process the scene. The team began spraying luminol around the apartment, looking for traces of blood. At first, nothing unusual showed up, but the moment they reached the bathroom, the luminol lit up almost the entire tub. It was clear that a large amount of blood had been cleaned up there. From that point on, detectives feared the worst. There was just too much blood for anyone to still be alive, so investigators quickly shifted their focus to finding Lauren's body. While officers were standing outside, one of them caught a strong, foul odor, one he instantly recognized as the smell of decomposition. Following the scent, he walked toward the apartment complex's dumpsters. The closer he got, the stronger the stench became. And when he finally lifted the lid on one of them, he saw a large black garbage bag, and inside that bag was a woman's torso. Although the victim's identity couldn't be confirmed visually, since her head was missing, detectives were almost certain it was Lauren. Still, they decided to keep the discovery quiet for the moment, not wanting to jeopardize the investigation. It's worth noting that finding the remains was pure luck. The officer had arrived at the complex just minutes before the garbage truck was scheduled to pick up the trash, and they'd parked their cars in a way that blocked the truck from entering. If not for that small coincidence, the body would have been taken to the landfill and most likely never found. As detectives waited for confirmation of the victim's identity and tried to figure out their next steps, they learned something that immediately caught their attention. Lauren's friends and family told them she'd been complaining for weeks about strange things happening in her apartment. She said that sometimes, when she came home, it felt like someone had moved her belongings around, but there were no signs of a break-in, and the door was always locked. This had been going on for quite a while, to the point where Lauren started wondering if she was losing her mind. On top of that, she sometimes felt like someone was watching her, though she never actually saw anyone. Growing increasingly uneasy, she even bought a door security bar to brace the door from the inside. But the strange things didn't stop. Shortly before she disappeared, Lauren had told her boyfriend about it. He tried to calm her down, suggesting it was probably just some pranksters fooling around and that she had nothing to worry about. Police quickly looked into her boyfriend David and found that he'd been out of state during the time of the murder. There was no way he could have done it, so they ruled him out almost immediately. Meanwhile, forensic investigators combed through Lauren's apartment, looking for fingerprints or any other trace evidence, but it looked as if someone had done a meticulous cleaning job. Every surface seemed freshly wiped down with cleaning products. In hopes of finding something, they decided to remove the entire bathtub and send it to the lab for DNA testing. Not long after, medical examiners confirmed that the torso found in the dumpster was indeed Lauren's, officially turning the case into a homicide. They estimated that she'd been killed around June 26, roughly 3 days before her friends and family started looking for her. However, the exact cause of death couldn't be determined, and there were no signs of sexual assault. Despite detectives' efforts to keep the investigation under wraps, the sudden police activity drew attention from reporters. Soon, journalists were gathering outside the apartment complex, filming news segments and spreading rumors that the police had found a body, even though, officially, no one had confirmed that yet. Detectives decided to question everyone living in the complex and check their apartments, just in case the killer was someone who lived right next door. All of the residents, who were also Mercer law students, immediately agreed to let the police in without a warrant. All except one, 25-year-old Stephen McDaniel. Stephen lived right next door to Lauren, but he flat out refused to let officers into his apartment. He told them that, as a law student, he strongly believed in protecting his privacy, and that he had nothing to hide. Naturally, that raised a lot of red flags for investigators. They started looking into him and quickly learned that Stephen had actually been helping with the search for Lauren the previous day, and that he'd even given an interview to reporters earlier that morning. He wasn't just some random neighbor. He'd been her classmate, a fellow law student, and even served as vice president of the same student law society where Lauren was president. So yes, he knew her very well, but for some reason, he was refusing to let police see his apartment. And yet, he stayed right in the middle of everything happening around the complex, hovering near officers, chatting with other residents, and talking to journalists. During the interview, Stephen told reporters how he and a few of Lauren's friends had gone into her apartment and searched the neighborhood, trying to find her. But while talking about Lauren, he started referring to her in the past tense, even though, at that point, no one yet knew for sure she was dead.
Yeah, Lauren was my neighbor. We're just trying to find out where she is at this point. I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I mean, the last time anyone heard from her was an email that she sent out, and no one's heard from her since.
Did you see her hang out with anyone at the time, anything like that?
I mean, no one has seen her since Saturday. I haven't seen anything. I mean, you always hear noise outside, but it's just people walking by pretty much.
And she just recently graduated from Mercer?
Yeah, she and I were both JD students. We graduated back in May.
What kind of person was she? I mean, what did you see?
I mean, she's as nice as can be. I mean, very personable, very much a people person.
Do you know anybody any enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her?
No, we don't know where she is. The only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snatched her. Because we went over. One of her friends had a key. We went inside and tried to see if there was anything amiss, but she had a door jamb that was sitting right by it, so there was no sign that anyone broke in. The door was locked when everyone got here. We just don't know where she is.
When the reporters mentioned that police might have found a body near the dumpsters, Stephen went completely silent. His face changed instantly. He froze, staring off into space, not saying a word. The journalist kept talking, asking if he was okay, and after a few seconds, Stephen quietly said he needed to sit down.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? We don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? They took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. That's how we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
Eventually, he resumed the interview, trying to answer questions again, though now he was acting very dramatic.
I don't know anyone that would want to hurt her. She was as nice a person as there is.
What's going on in your mind right now? What are you thinking?
Why would anyone do this?
She didn't hear anything?
No. I just heard something. Maybe I could have helped.
Okay, don't worry. Do you want to sit down for a second?
And after the reporters left, Stephen just sat there for a long time, completely still, staring off into the distance. A few hours later, Stephen suddenly changed his mind and told police they could search his apartment after all. The moment detectives stepped inside, they were hit with what looked like organized chaos. Large piles of canned food, energy drinks, random junk, and a lot of weapons. But what really caught their attention came next. Hidden among his things were 2 keys, a master key that could open any door in the complex, and another one, a duplicate that fit Lauren's apartment specifically. When they confronted him, Stephen admitted that he'd broken into several neighboring units when the tenants weren't home, and in one case, he'd stolen a box of condoms. Strangely, he added that he was a virgin, but he never explained why he took them in the first place. Detectives decided to use that confession to their advantage. They arrested him for burglary and took him down to the station for questioning. Meanwhile, officers continued searching his apartment, and that's when they found an empty hacksaw package. Considering the killer had dismembered the victim, this discovery sent an immediate chill through the room. But the deeper they looked, the worse it got. Police found 2 USB drives filled with illegal material involving minors, along with a pair of women's underwear hidden in the closet. When investigators checked his computer, they discovered that Stephen had been visiting Lauren's social media pages obsessively. At the same time, his browser history showed he'd been consuming violent and disturbing adult content, sometimes while looking at Lauren's photos. And even that wasn't the end of it. Detectives found links to online forums where Stephen had been writing graphic stories about murdering and torturing women. And one of the final searches in his browser history was the trash collection schedule for their city. All of this convinced detectives beyond any doubt that Stephen was involved in Lauren's murder. To them, it was clear that he'd been obsessed with her, and since he had a key to her apartment, plus Lauren's repeated complaints about things being moved around while she was gone, the picture started to come together. Stephen had been sneaking into her home all along. Still, there was one major problem. They didn't yet have any solid evidence directly linking him to the crime. During questioning, detectives tried everything they could to get a confession, but Stephen's behavior was pretty weird. For hours, he sat motionless, answering in a barely audible voice, repeating only 3 phrases. yes, no, and I don't know.
And you've lived next to Lauren for a long time?
Yes.
Have you ever seen her with that dress on?
No.
You have no idea where she's at?
No.
Just tell me what happened, brother.
I don't know.
The detectives grew increasingly frustrated. They pressured him, even tried the classic bluff, claiming they'd found his DNA at the crime scene and that the only thing that could help him now was to confess. But Stephen, who'd studied law himself, didn't fall for it. He stayed completely calm, emotionless, and silent.
You know what's crazy? I was talking to people that he works with and everything. They talk about how he's always expresses himself.
But he don't know.
He's very talkative. Stephen, they say you're so talkative, buddy, that you always so friendly. You stop in and say hello, and you talk. Why is it that you're acting so short with us tonight? If you have all this character and personality about you, why is it that everything that we get from you is yes, no, or I don't know?
I don't know.
Well, you sure were talking to the media tonight, weren't you?
They asked what happened.
Yeah, that's what we're asking you. What happened? What'd you tell them?
I told them
You
what
didn't-
I knew.
That you didn't know. Hmm?
Do you realize how you're talking right now? Does it not feel weird to you?
No.
Would you say that this is how you talk all the time?
I don't understand.
You're just not expressing yourself at all. Everything's with you is yes, no, I don't remember, I don't understand. You can't help me out with anything. There's nothing you can tell me to help me about this beautiful girl right here, Stephen. That was your friend. Nothing. You gonna let things go down like this?
I don't know what you want.
I want the truth, Stephen. We just wanted to give you an opportunity to tell it, so you didn't look like a monster at the end. Because you know what? I don't believe that you're a monster, Stephen. I believe that you're a good guy. You've been picked on. Girls didn't show you the respect that you deserved. You did something stupid. And I believe you feel bad about it. And that's why you're all freaked out right now. But I'm giving you the opportunity to get right. I'm giving you an opportunity to show everybody you're not a monster. That you feel bad about what happened. Your hair's there, man. Your hair is there. We got your hair with the body. How's that, Stephen?
I don't know.
Yes, you do know. Yes, you do know, Stephen. That's right, buddy. See that? Look at it. See how easy? It happens. And it happened to you. Why, Stephen?
I don't understand.
Oh, you understand. You understand exactly what I'm saying. See this stuff right here, your hair? Yeah, it fell out of your head when you was moving the body, Stephen. That's right. You remember moving the body?
No.
Yes, you do, Stephen.
Eventually, the detectives left him alone in the interrogation room, and Stephen just sat there for a long time, perfectly still, staring blankly at the wall.
Just stay right here, okay?
Okay.
I appreciate all your cooperation tonight, okay?
Okay.
Officers also asked him to remove his shirt so they could check for any recent injuries. That's when they noticed several scratches across his torso, marks that looked like they'd been made by fingernails. When asked about them, Stephen simply said he had no idea where they came from. Maybe, he suggested, he'd scratched himself in his sleep. Police eventually realized there was no way they'd get a confession out of Stephen, so they shifted their focus to finding hard evidence. They began combing through every inch of the apartment complex, and soon they caught a break. In a maintenance room, officers discovered a hacksaw that perfectly matched the packaging found in Stephen's apartment. It had clearly been scrubbed clean, but forensic experts still managed to find tiny fragments of human tissue on the blade, and DNA tests confirmed they belonged to Lauren. From there, detectives traced the purchase of that same saw back to a local hardware store and pulled the surveillance footage from that day. On the video, clear as day, was Stephen McDaniel buying the saw himself. Investigators also interviewed the maintenance worker who had access to that room, but the man provided a solid alibi for the night of the murder. That left only one person who could have opened the door: Stephen, the man with a master key. Detectives then started digging deeper into his background and talking to people who knew him. Everyone described Stephen as quiet, withdrawn, and just strange, but also very intelligent. Several classmates mentioned that when he met new people, he would ask them two unsettling questions. What would you do in a zombie apocalypse? And how would you commit the perfect murder? Because of his odd behavior, he didn't really have any friends, and most classmates avoided him outside of school. The only person who ever tried to be kind to him was actually Lauren. She found him a bit unusual, but still treated him with respect and kindness. Over the 3 years they lived next door, Stephen had asked her out several times, but Lauren had always politely turned him down. Outside of school, he barely had a life. He spent nearly all of his time at home, with his curtains constantly drawn and no one ever coming or going. In the weeks following Stephen's arrest, police kept searching for more evidence, but every lead came up empty. They also continued combing through nearby areas, hoping to find the rest of Lauren's remains. But that search ended in failure too. The only thing detectives managed to uncover was a lab report confirming that the pair of women's underwear found in Stephen's apartment belonged to Lauren. But soon after, investigators discovered something that sent chills even down the spines of seasoned detectives. On one of the memory cards seized from Stephen's apartment, they found a video, recorded just hours before Lauren's death. Using a long wooden stick, Stephen had taped a small camera to the end of it and lifted it up to Lauren's window, secretly filming the inside of her apartment. That footage erased any lingering doubt about his guilt, and a few weeks later, formal charges were filed, not only for Lauren's murder, but also for 30 counts of possession of illegal material involving minors. As the case moved toward trial, Stephen pleaded not guilty, while prosecutors announced their intention to seek the death penalty. His defense attorney, a former professor who had actually taught both Lauren and Stephen, claimed that police might have framed his client, planting evidence in the apartment to make him look guilty. He also argued against the death penalty, pointing out that Lauren herself had been publicly opposed to it. But in the end, the judge sided with the prosecution. The road to trial dragged on for years. The prosecution knew that with the evidence they had, Stephen still stood a real chance of walking free, because to pursue the death penalty, they needed absolute, irrefutable proof. And the truth was, most of what they had was circumstantial, so a skilled defense attorney could easily plant doubt in the minds of the jury. After some consideration, the prosecution made a calculated decision. They offered Stephen a plea deal. If he confessed in full detail and pled guilty to the murder, the state would drop all the charges related to illegal materials, and more importantly, take the death penalty off the table. In 2014, 3 years after Lauren's death, Stephen finally agreed. According to his confession, around 4:30 in the morning, he dressed entirely in black, from head to toe, mask and gloves included. Using the spare key, he quietly unlocked Lauren's door and slipped inside, managing to bypass the door brace she used for extra security. Stephen crept into her bedroom and stood there for a while, just watching as she slept. Then, at some point, the floor creaked beneath him. Lauren woke up, startled, and when she saw a masked figure in her room, she told him to get out. That's when he jumped at her and started choking her while she fought back. At some point, Lauren managed to tear off his mask, and when she did, she saw it was Stephen. Lauren begged him to stop, but he didn't. The struggle went on for nearly 15 minutes before he finally realized she wasn't breathing anymore. Stephen then carried her body into the bathroom and left it there overnight. The next evening, he returned with tools, including a hacksaw, and spent several hours dismembering the body. He placed the remains into trash bags and scattered them across multiple dumpsters near the university. As for the torso, he dumped it in the bin beside their apartment complex, assuming the garbage truck would pick it up soon. Afterward, he cut up his mask, gloves, and shirt into small pieces and flushed them down the toilet. Stephen claimed he didn't really know why he killed Lauren. According to him, he'd suffered some kind of mental blackout and genuinely believed she was still alive afterward, which, he said, was why he took part in the search for her. But prosecutors didn't buy that story for a second. In their view, Stephen had been obsessed with Lauren for a long time. His social media history, the video he filmed through her window, and his disturbing online activity all pointed to someone consumed by dark fantasies about violence and control. The forums he frequented and the content he viewed made it clear he was fascinated by inflicting pain on women. And with Lauren just days away from moving out of the apartment complex, prosecutors believed he acted out of desperation. He couldn't stand the thought of losing sight of her forever. Either way, his confession sealed his fate. Stephen McDaniel was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole in 2041. 4 years later, he filed an appeal, and this time, he decided to represent himself. He argued that police had violated his rights from the very beginning, yelling at him during interrogation, refusing to let him use the bathroom without permission, and even denying him medical help during what he claimed was a seizure, unless he allowed them to search his apartment. He also accused his former attorney of failing to defend him properly. The lawyer, in turn, responded that Stephen had been given a remarkably good deal, life with a chance of parole instead of a death sentence, and that no attorney could have done better under the circumstances. Despite his efforts, the appeal was denied. In 2022, Stephen filed yet another one, but that too was rejected. It's worth mentioning that some of his relatives still insist he was framed. His father even created a fundraising page to hire a new lawyer for him, but no one donated a single dollar, and the page was quickly taken down. So, Stephen remains behind bars to this day, still trying to overturn his conviction. But according to most legal experts, the odds are stacked against him, and it's almost certain he'll spend the rest of his life in prison. Share your thoughts on this story in the comments section, and don't forget to press the like button if you enjoyed my video. Thank you for watching.